let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. I think just a week or so ago, we talked about the Seahawks. We talked about Byron Murphy, how fantastic he looks. First round pick. It's going to be a guy who automatically is going to be a big impact for this team. But when looking at this draft class, you kind of start to wonder, is there anybody else who could possibly step up and also make an impact? Because if you want to have a really good draft class, more than one guy is going to have to make an early impact. And there's one guy in particular that is starting to stand out to a lot of people in the Seahawks world. Let's get into the article and we can talk more about it on the other side. This is from over on Sporting News. It says, beyond Murphy, it's tough to say whether or not we'll see any other rookies start for Seattle this season. Third round Christian Haynes should be in the mix at right guard, but will have to beat out Anthony Bradford. There is someone who believes Haynes could be a difference maker this season, though. Pro Football Network's Ian Cummings listed Haynes as one of the 32 rookies who could have a massive impact in 2024. The Christian Haynes was graded as a fringe first-round pick on my board, and the Seahawks got him in round 3. Byron Murphy could have just as great of an impact in a rotation with Jaron Reed and Leonard Williams, but there's no reason Haynes can't start. At 6'3", 317, Haynes is hyper-dense mauler with a combined explosiveness and rotational freedom to pummel opponents into submission. He can pull, pass protect, and control gaps, and he can immediately upgrade Seattle's interior line. This is very interesting, Nick. I love the verbiage he uses in his quotes as well. It's very exciting, but it would be pretty cool. But there's more to this as well. This isn't the only guy who is talking about it. It's not just some media pundit. Let's get into the next part as well. This is from Seahawks.com. Hall of Fame guard Steve Hutchinson, who works for the team as a football consultant, a role that consists largely of helping evaluate offensive linemen, quietly chats with Schneider. In particular, Schneider wants Hutch's opinion on Haynes. He says, I think he's going to be a really good expletive player. So you can fill in the blank there, probably effing player, Hutchinson tells Schneider. So Steve Hutchinson, one of the greatest guards to ever play the game of football, one of the greatest Seahawks players to ever play the game of football as well, comes in here and says that he loves what this guy is doing as well. So I think, that's 2 points of evidence here that show that Haynes really could go on and surprise some people. Nick, curious what your thoughts are on this one. But before we get to you, Nick, Seahawks fans, in the comments section below, we asked defense last time. Now we'll ask offense. You got a good example on here, but maybe outside of Steve Hutchinson, who is your favorite Seahawks offensive lineman of all time? There's a lot of really great answers on here, but let us know in the comments below who's your favorite. And while you're down there, check the description below the video to see our list of our recommended NFL reading. Get you a great book for this summer out on the beach. You want to read some football, get some football knowledge in there as well. Check the books out in the description below the video. But Nick, what are your thoughts on Haynes?
So I think you bring up a great point, Ryan. We talk about it on this channel all the time. We love what we call corroborating evidence because you can usually find a source somewhere that says something good about a player, right? If you spend enough research, you'll find somebody somewhere that says something good. In this case, a media pundit. By itself, that's a good sign, right? You'd rather have somebody say something good than not. But when you factor in what this media guy says, this pundit says, and then compare it with Steve freaking Hutchinson, right? One of the best interior offensive linemen in NFL history, not just in Seahawks history. That raises a few eyebrows that maybe the Seattle Seahawks are onto something here with Haynes, who, like reportedly was said, got incredible value getting him in the 3rd round when he was really, a lot of people thought he could slip into the 1st round, certainly be gone early 2nd. But when you really dive in and compare Hutchinson versus Haynes, you see exactly why Hutchinson is really impressed by Haynes, because they're stylistically, physically, measurable-wise, they're incredibly similar. Hutchinson, 2-time All-American, 6'5", 315. Haynes, 2-time All-American, 6'3", 315. Hutchinson has a arm length of 33 inches. Haynes, 33 and a half. How about 40-yard dash? Haynes was 5'03". Hutchinson was 5'13". I mean, you keep going on and on and on down the list. These are very, very similar players in terms of their measurables. Very, very similar in terms of how they performed in college. Again, Hutchinson, last 2 years at Michigan, he was All-American. We already talked about Haynes as well, being a 2-time All-American guy at UConn. So we're seeing a lot of similar dynamics, and I think that's what Hutchinson sees. He looks at Haynes, he looks at the film, looks at all his measurables and says, this guy's very similar to me, talking about Hutchinson here, than a lot of people are giving him credit for. Now look, is Haynes going to be nearly as good as Hutchinson? Probably not, but he doesn't even have to be, right? If he's 50, 60, 70% as good as Hutchinson, this is a massive get for the Seattle Seahawks and a guy who could be a day one starter. Again, I think the media pundit reporting on this guy saying good things, that's always nice. But when you have a guy like Steve Hutchinson coming out and saying things like that, that's a great sign that the Seahawks have something special here in Haynes.
Yeah, Nick, and I think this is crazy good for the Seahawks as well, because if anything is true, the Seahawks have been absolutely killing it when it comes to grabbing players and getting them to start from college into this offensive line. It's a very young offensive line already. You got Laken Tomlinson, who's by far the oldest guy. You look at the tackles, both guys going into their third year when you've got Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. Both have been doing pretty good as well. You look at Bradford, who potentially is the guy that Haynes could beat out. He's going into his second year. Then Oluwatimi at center as well. The Michigan man is going in his second year. This is a crazy young offensive line, and it just goes to show that these guys are starting. The Seahawks have been very great talent evaluators of offensive linemen coming out of the college game, probably partially due to Hutchinson being on staff, being able to identify, who are going to be the best offensive linemen to come to this team. But I think when we're hearing about Haynes and potentially buzz around people in the Seahawks realm and they're liking him, I think there's a good chance that this guy could be great, because they have hit on a lot of great offensive linemen lately, and I think we're going to see this Seahawks offensive line. It was pretty good last year, but I think addition of a guy like Haynes could make them great.